So did you know that Gbtc holds 650,000 roughly Bitcoin? Did you know that Fidelity controls roughly 600,000 Bitcoin from what I've read? And now Blackrock has filed this ETF application. And the question that I have is, do you really think that Blackrock is trying to get involved in this space and have the smallest, tiniest, most impotent looking Bitcoin fund that is possible? Of course not. Of course not. The question is, how many dollars now would it take to acquire the same amount of Bitcoin? It would take, so Gbtc has about $18 billion AUM, 30% discount. So you're looking at, like, let's just say $20 to $23 billion at today's price. If that money started going in and acquiring all the Bitcoin that was possible, right? The price of Bitcoin would significantly move up because people are hodling, they're not selling. Like, it's not a 100% liquid market in the sense that people are always selling and buying, right? There's 80% of people who buy the Bitcoin and hold it no matter what happens. You understand how ridiculous that is when it comes to an asset? 80% rate of hodling? That's crazy, right? Especially now when there's no tax incentives yet, like a 1031 exchange. So what happens when BlackRock gets into this and gets their ETF approved and they want a Bitcoin ETF that is sizable, right? What happens? Everyone thinks that the big boys are not, going to come for blood. They're absolutely coming for blood here. And what I think is going to happen, what makes the most sense to me, is that BlackRock buys Gbtc and rolls it up into their ETF. And why this makes sense on a bunch of different reasons, right? Number one, obviously, it's the most pre-existing one, and it gives them the amount of, it gives them preeminent status when it comes to being a Bitcoin service provider. Secondly, DCG at this moment in time is in trouble, right? So because they're 100% in the crypto realm, so they're in trouble. Now is a good time to buy them up, basically. DCG is the provider of Grayscale, or rather the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, Gbtc. The other reason is, while Gbtc is good right now, it makes sense for them to sell, because once an ETF is approved, Gbtc's fees, which are relatively high compared to other ETFs, will have to come down in order to compete. So they'll need 10 times the amount of capital flown in order to make the same money. So now is a good time for DCG to consider selling Gbtc and focus on something else, unless they truly have this long-term, vision, etc., etc. So now is a good time for this to happen. In the finance world, when people say now, they don't mean like right now, as in like I'm gonna send this tweet out. It means now, as in this cycle, in this period of time. So this starts to make sense about now, and I think that Gbtc is an acquisition target for BlackRock. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. I would love to hear if someone thinks it doesn't make sense, but I think that makes the most sense to me as to what would give BlackRock preeminent status. It would make the DCG board happy because they'd walk away with a bunch of money. And they would allow BlackRock to take Gbtc on to the next stage of what it has to become. The good news is we're all front-running all of this. We're front-running all of this. So the question becomes, are you prepared for a BlackRock acquisition of Gbtc and a roll-up so that 650,000 Bitcoin immediately get snapped up under the control of BlackRock? That doesn't include what they themselves have been buying prior, right? Because certainly, they're not here just to they haven't started talking about it because they want to buy now, right? They've been buying before. So the question is, Do you think that GBTC is an acquisition target for BlackRock? I do, because I don't think BlackRock is here to play in the small leagues. I think they want a sizable fund. They've got Fidelity to compete with. Fidelity, from what I read in the last bull market, has been mining Bitcoin since the beginning. They've had the foresight to do that. So they've got to compete with Fidelity. And the only way that I see for BlackRock to compete with Fidelity is the GBTC acquisition. It's also why possibly, I know they're in the middle of a lawsuit, but possibly why GBTC hasn't refiled its application along with everybody else based on the changes that have happened. This is a super exciting time, and it's a super opportunity here for anyone who is thinking of allocating into Bitcoin, right? So take that for what it is, but I think GBTC is an acquisition target for BlackRock in this next cycle. Just imagine what happens to the market if that happens and GBTC gets rolled up into BlackRock's ETF application.